He's the player known as Nick the Quick.
Van Exel down the middle, spins it up and in!
A whirling dervish on a basketball court, and an athlete who plays the game like a man on fire.
He's intense. He has a passion for the game of basketball.
He's a very emotional kid, high-strung and unbelievably competitive.
Van Exel's gone. Van Exel is gone.
I have to be angry. I can't be out on the court smiling all the time and being happy-go-lucky because that's not how I am.
Be careful. There's the tee.
Wish I was like that, but that's not how I am.
But away from the court, there lives a very different Nick Van Exel. A quiet man, admired for his friendship and generosity.
If he don't know you, he won't speak a word to you. If he know you, he will give a shirt off his back to you.
I am two different people. Why? Don't have a clue.
Resolving the puzzle within himself has been the struggle of a lifetime for Van Exel. And the lessons he's learned along the way have come at a price. Nick Van Exel Jr. grew up in Kenosha, Wisconsin, by the shores of Lake Michigan, an all-American city that mixed scenes of postcard beauty with those of urban blight.
You got the minorities and stuff like that in the inner city, and then you have the, Caucasian, white America in the outer city.
It's pretty much basically family. It's pretty much all you got in Kenosha. There isn't really much to offer for jobs.
Just a small town. Everybody pretty much knew one another, and that's basically just how it was back then.
Nick was the lone child of Joyce Van Exel and her husband, Nick Sr., a former high school basketball star. As a kid, Nick tagged along to watch his dad hoop it up at the local gym.
When he was young, they were together all the time. Together all the time. And he played basketball, and he'd always take him.
But when the games were over, Nick watched his father turn from sports star to street criminal.
Knowing everybody was in the gym, he would ride around and go into people's cars and snatch out their stereos and things like that. And I was riding in the car with him. It was kind of scary for me at a young age, but I can remember that just like it was yesterday.
When Nick was 7, his father was arrested and sent to prison. To pay the bills, his mom took a job at the local Chrysler plant, leaving Nick plenty of time to fend for himself.
She worked second shift, which meant that when I got home from school, I would probably see her maybe 30 minutes before she took off to work. So it turned me into a loner, not having my dad there, then my mom always gone, working.
While Nick's father was in prison, his parents' marriage ended. When Nick Sr. was released a few years later, he left his family and moved from Wisconsin to Georgia.
He loved his dad.
Years went by. Then one day, Nick's dad called him on the phone and offered him a plane ticket to visit.
He called and just out of the blue and said he wanted to see me or whatever. I got really excited. He said he had a plane ticket for me to come down to Georgia, and my grandfather, he took me to the airport in Milwaukee. And when we got there was no plane ticket. That really hurt my feelings a lot. And I said, if I ever get in a situation like that, I would never ever do that to a kid of mine.
Jumps it left to Nicky Van Exel. Nicky Van Exel putting on a show.
Though abandoned by his father, Nick inherited his passion for basketball. He became a hotshot in Kenosha's small fry league. For Nick and his friends, Myron Glass and Curtis Turner, basketball was their bond and their brotherhood.
Growing up without their father, it's gonna leave a hole or a gap in any person. I don't care who you are. So we look to each other for a lot of guidance.
I treated him like he was a brother, forget the negativity, let's go with the positive things of life.
Nick's talent paid off when he was offered a scholarship to St. Joseph's High School in Kenosha. But when Nick got there, he felt out of place among more affluent classmates.
They were rich, they were driving the cars, they had the credit cards. And me, I didn't have any of that.
Very quiet individual, kept to himself. Nicky had to be spoken to first to try to get that out of him.
You're thinking everybody's looking at you. You're thinking everybody's going to try to make fun of you once you make one little mistake.
Uncomfortable in class, Nick was a poor student. But on the basketball court, he flourished under freshman coach Ray Knight, a hard-nosed taskmaster who believed in Nick and went the extra mile to prove it.
You'd have to pick him up to take him to school or get him places, because at that time, the family life and the family background weren't very supportive of him.
He was a strict disciplinarian, but one thing about Coach Knight, he'd always invite the guys down to his house. His kids were great with me. On the court, you really didn't like him much, but off the court, he was a great guy to be around.
Coach Knight was like Bobby Knight. If you could listen to what he would tell you to do, he made you a great player.
Nick was becoming just that. He led St. Joe's to the state finals 2 years in a row and became the second leading scorer in Wisconsin's history. By the time Van Exel graduated from St. Joe's in 1989, he was an all-state star and a hot college prospect. After 17 years in Kenosha, Nick was ready to hit the road, where trouble would be waiting.
The worst 2 years of my life.
He's got nobody that he could depend on, and it disintegrated on him.
One teacher told me I would probably end up somewhere dead in the gutter.
After leading his high school team to the state finals, Nick Van Exel was the toast of Kenosha, Wisconsin. But poor grades kept him from enrolling at a four-year college nearby. Instead, Nick journeyed to Trinity Valley Junior College on the hard-scrabble plains of Central Texas.
I wanted to get away from Kenosha. I wanted to not go to the same schools everybody else was going to. I wanted to go off and try to do something on my own.
But racial conflicts permeated Trinity Valley. On the court, the players fought opponents with a fury. When the games were over, they fought each other.
It was like the black guys were here and the white guys were there. Some of the white guys used to hang with us and even vice versa. But then there were some white guys who just didn't want to have anything to do with us.
Depressed and lonely, Nick called his mom and asked to come back home. Joyce told her son to tough it out.
He wanted to like drop out, didn't want to go back. I said, if you come home, you see how I'm working hard, you will have to do this too.
I would always call her and please let me come home. She wasn't having it.
Desperate to leave Trinity Valley, Van Exel hit the books, earning 32 credits in one semester to transfer to the University of Cincinnati. Arriving in May of 1991, he went to school all summer to qualify for a basketball scholarship, making ends meet by sleeping in the gym. Cincinnati head coach Bob Huggins was notoriously tough to play for. But when basketball season began, he and Nick discovered that they shared a fiercely competitive drive.
Both of us are kind of out for the same thing. I don't think people realize Nick's tremendous desire to win.
Throw ahead to Van Exel. He'll cut it loose. Watch out!
Hugs used to always say, "But if I had a piece of pie and there was one piece left, what do you think would get that pie?"
Van Exel.
And we all just sort of looked around. We knew it was Nick.
Van Exel, what a move by Van Exel! Look at Van Exel hang in the air.
Van Exel takes it right to the hoop.
With Van Exel running the show, the Bearcats took off.
Blocked by Blunt. Oh, his second big one of the half. Van Exel.
They finished the 91-92 season with a record of 27-2.
That's his second of the game. He's got both Bearcat threes. And
Then they blasted through the NCAA tourney all the way to the Final Four.
Look at Van Exel.
In my estimation, Van Exel's the man.
He went from a youngster at Trinity Valley that wouldn't say two words to a kid that would stand up in front of his teammates and tell them the way it was, because he wanted to win.
He couldn't be any hotter going into the Final Four.
That was the biggest thing that could have happened to me.